There are no vacation days. There are no sick days. So when you don't feel like going to work, you can't call out. Are you thinking about leaving the workforce, quitting your job to be at home with your babies? Well, before you do that, watch this video. There's a couple things I want you to consider first. Let's get into it. Hello, I'm Destiny, and this is the Billingsley Balance. I am a stay-at-home mom and have been over the last 7.5 years of 3 beautiful little boys. And so I just want to share with you a couple tips, some things that I didn't know before I became one that you may want to think about if you are deciding whether or not being at home is a good fit for you. So everyone knows the pros of being a stay-at-home mom. You get to be at home. There is schedule flexibility like no other. You don't miss out on the major milestones with your children. You don't have to go to work, in theory, but those are the main things that people are like, I want to be at home with my children. I don't want to look back and say, I missed out on being with my children. Everyone knows these things, but there are some negatives that come along with you being at home with your kids all the time and not having an income. So let's get into that a little bit more. Being a stay-at-home mom means that you're going to be financially dependent on someone else. That means all of your bills are taken care of by someone else. You don't go to work, and that can be a little bit daunting for some people. I know initially I didn't necessarily like it because I was working, and my husband, it wasn't necessarily the best time for me to come home. However, it took a lot of conversations. It took time for him to change in employment and everything. So if that's something that you guys both really value, you can make it happen. But if that's something that only one of you values, it might be something worth having a deeper conversation on, or maybe not doing this at all. Because sometimes people say one thing and then they, say another, where it's like, oh, well, yeah, I thought I was okay with it, but now that you're not working, I'm actually not okay with it. I would rather you be working. We put the kids in daycare. Make sure you have a very deep, a very thorough conversation to make sure you're both on the same page and wanting you to leave the workforce, and it's not going to become an issue later. If you feel like you have the potential to be in a relationship where your spouse may weaponize the finances, I probably wouldn't recommend being a stay-at-home mom. If financial independence is very important to you, being a stay-at-home mom may not be the best fit because you don't have an income. And so if you feel like, I like having my own money and I like being able to, have a certain level of control, that might be for you. This might not be for you. Also, something to consider is retirement. How are you going to retire yourself? That's something I didn't think about for a while until I was like, man, I had my first kid at 26, so I wasn't necessarily thinking about retirement like I should have been. But, now that I'm 33, retirement is definitely on the radar of like, hey, okay, how is my husband going to retire 2 of us? So just keep that in mind. If you are deciding to leave the workforce, it may be a situation where you have another option in working, but we'll get into that in a little bit later in the video. When you become a stay-at-home mom, you will also more than likely become the default parent. What does that mean? That means that anytime your children need something, they're going to come to you. That means, oh, mommy, I need help with this. Mommy, where is my hat? Mommy, why can't we have this snack? You're going to be their go-to person because you're always around. You're their leader, so to speak. So even though your spouse may be helpful, you're more than likely going to be that person that they go to. And sometimes that can be a little bit annoying. You're like, hey, we're both your parents. Why can't you ask for help from your father? Which would be, in my case, it could be either or depending on your situation. But in my case, why can't you ask help from your father? And they're like, well, because you're my person. You're who I always ask things of. So just know that you might be the default parent. Your kids, they can't help it. They're going to do what they are most comfortable with. So, just something to get prepared for mentally if you're deciding to be a stay-at-home parent. The third thing you need to consider is your job is around the clock. It never ends. So You don't get to say, oh man, I'm so glad the day is over with, well, you kind of do, meaning like your kids go to bed, but they wake up, they get out of the bed, and you're on duty. You don't get to say, hey, I'm taking a paid vacation day from being a stay-at-home mom. No, that doesn't happen, unfortunately. You don't get vacation days, you don't get sick days. Your job is on at all times. Now, depending on level of help from your spouse, that can change. As far as like how much help you get, and oh, I'm sick, and your spouse can step in. But just know by default, you don't get any days off ever. Like your job is 24/7, and that is, so it's flexible in the fact that you don't have a schedule that is set, but it's also kind of messed up because like you don't get to clock out. You don't get to check out of, hey, I'm not a mom right now. No, it's just not a thing. So, okay. Also, being a stay-at-home mom can be very lonely and isolating. One of the issues that I've had with my husband is that I don't have very many friends. I don't have coworkers that I can end up meeting up with, or maybe getting cool with, or becoming, potentially close friends with and such. Anybody that I met in college or from previous experiences before having children are pretty much who I have in my circle. And so that is something that I do try to work on and build my network with. But, I don't necessarily have an abundance of people that I can socialize with. So if you're somebody that likes socialization and you like friendships that, you can just kind of hang out and go all the time, being a stay-at-home mom is kind of, it can be kind of lonely. So I'm somebody who doesn't get lonely very easily, but however, I have moments where I'm like, man, I wish I had something going on. I wish, even, it was just crazy to say, but I wish I had like a work meeting or work party that I could go have some fun at and such. So you have to have your own parties with the kids or with friends, or invite people to your house in order to make those things happen. Maybe at the gym, or take, some kind of class and make friends. But just, I don't know, if you're somebody that just likes to, be social, just know that you're going to have to be a little bit more proactive if you want to make that happen. And lastly, you need to get a side hustle. So when I say the word need, you don't have to. But back to point number one, which is you don't have any income. However, just speaking for me personally, when it comes to buying gifts and doing nice things, it'd be nice if you had your own money to do that with. So I've been off and on with having side hustles, and when I have money, it's like, oh, I can do this nice thing and come out of my own money, as opposed to having to dip into our family money, which is my husband's, but it's considered our family money to do that. So get a side hustle before you become a stay-at-home mom, okay? Because not having any money is not fun. And then it's also harder. So like if you don't have any children yet, get a side hustle before you have kids, because it's even easier then, because you have the flexibility, whether or not that's a part-time gig that you can do from home, you create something, or it's a job that's just simply flexible. Like, just have a little bit of money coming in, even if it's small, $500 a month, that little bit can do a lot for your mental as far as contributing in your household. And you feel like, I don't know, I guess more of a valued member of your family because of it, maybe. But either way, get a side hustle, do before kids if you can, or if you are gonna leave the workforce, figure out a way to continue making at least a small income that will help, pay for little miscellaneous things for the family. In conclusion, being a stay-at-home mom, from my personal experience, it's pretty awesome. I wouldn't change it. I love what I do, but like I said, just get your little side hustle and make a little cash and enjoy your freedom. If you have any more questions on being a stay-at-home mom, please message me. I will be glad to chat with you. And I will be sharing more tips on being a stay-at-home mom and motherhood. And I hope you join me for the journey. So thank you for watching, and I will see you guys next time.